the DC motors, you could have revised about these DC motors, because DC motor drives are those drives which use, these drives uses what? DC motors
as prime mover.
As prime, right? Fine. This is the one thing. Second is that based upon the kind of power modulator used, these drives can be classified into two categories. One called as rectifier fed DC motor drive, and the second one, batao?
Chopper fed
DC motor drive. Who will explain it to the class that what does this chopper fed DC motor drive means? Any one of you?
Yes, sir. Sir, the coming supply is first delivered to the chopper, so we can regulate it, and then it is transferred to the motor.
Basically, you escaped the one thing, that the supply available is DC to us, right? Whereas the motor is DC, but to have the power flow, controlled power flow, we will be using a DC converter in between the motor and the power source, right? That's why these drives, in which we will be using chopper to fed the DC power supply from the DC power supply to this motor, right? They will be termed as chopper fed DC motor drive. Is this clear, बच्चों? अरे बताओ जल्दी, यहाँ सुन पा रहे हो आप मुझे?
Yes, sir.
सुन पा रहे हो?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
ठीक है. So there could be two kind of DC motor drives. Either it could be rectifier fed DC motor drives, or it could be chopper fed DC motor drive. Obviously, rectifier fed DC motor drives will be those in which the supply used is AC, right? Whereas the chopper fed DC motor drives will be those in which the supply available is DC. And the components almost remains the same, which we have studied in our first unit, right? So if we are going to design a rectifier fed DC motor drive, obviously if someone says to you that please design a rectifier or make a schematic of a rectifier fed DC motor drive, how will you make? Everybody try to make a rectifier schematic for a rectifier fed DC motor drive in your paper, in your copy. Please make a schematic of rectifier fed DC motor drive so that things could be clear to you. I will be checking it that who has made this or who has not. Everybody draw a schematic diagram of a rectifier fed DC motor drive. Have you made that? Have you drawn? Who has drawn that? Show me. Turn on your camera and show me.